Well, I want to welcome everybody joining us online, hopefully from around the world. I am with Ed Carpenter, and we are at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Ed, thanks for taking a few minutes to spend some time with us. I know this is a busy time of the year for you.
I'm happy to. Anytime I get to be here, it makes it even better. So it worked out great.
Absolutely. Little different vantage point for you. Usually you're down there, but now we get a pretty good view of the track.
Yeah, believe it or not, the first race I remember watching is on the next balcony over from here. So if I'm not in the car, this Turn 2 Suite complex is my favorite place to be here.
Yeah, it's great. What year did you see the race for the very first time?
1989 was my first memory. That's when my parents got married. And literally, watching qualifying 20 feet away with my feet dangling between these rails that wouldn't fit anymore. Great memories.
That's amazing. I can remember the first time I ever came to this track. It wasn't the Indy 500. It was the Brickyard, 1996. I was doing an internship at a church in Anderson. We were selling seat cushions before the race. So we showed up at the track before the sun came up. I was so tired that I actually fell asleep. And then whenever I woke up, all these people were pouring in.
I fell asleep during NASCAR races sometimes too. So.
Of course, it's so slow. Little jab. But anyway, we are looking forward to the race coming up here at the end of this month. We'll pull it for you, as we always do. How are you feeling about it?
Right now, I always feel kind of a lot of anxiety. This will be my 21st attempt, which hopefully will be the lucky one for me to finally get a victory. But leading into it, I have so much belief in my team and the preparation, and we've had a decent amount of success here with fast cars and leading a lot of laps. But I always have this fear that we're going to be slow, and that fear never goes away until we get on track for the first day of the month. So as we get closer and closer to that day, which it's actually 1 week out from today, that I'll be in the car, my anxiety level kind of creeps up and up and up, just worrying about things that I can't control, basically.
Yeah, I would imagine. There are all kinds of things outside of your control.
A lot.
For those who don't know, what's been your top finish at the 500?
I finished second is my best finish. Willpower beat me by 1.5 seconds over 500 miles, which don't ask me how much time I spent thinking about, how he got 1.5 seconds better than me, or where I made mistakes that cost me 1.5 seconds over the course of 500 miles. But, I try to not dwell on it too much, just try to pick the things that I can do better and improve on to give ourselves a better chance.
Yeah, absolutely. How long have you been racing?
In IndyCar or in general?
Just in general.
So I started in 1989.
Okay.
Fell in love with it immediately, and so all I really ever wanted to do.
That's amazing.
My parents were great guides for me, not only professionally towards racing, but also giving me balance and making a wise decision of forcing me to go to college when I didn't want to. I think, looking back on that now, I don't think I'd be sitting here today in the position I'm in, having my own race team, without that perspective and experience that I got at Butler. So very thankful to have great people around me.
Yeah. So this is your hometown, Indy?
It is.
What do you love most about Indy?
Everything. I think the community and just the Hoosier hospitality, I think is real. You hear it get talked about, but whether it's events like this or any major event that our city hosts, or just the way people interact with other people relative to other cities that I travel to, which we travel a lot, it always feels good to be home.
Yeah.
I like visiting other places, but this is definitely home.
Yeah. And there's something about this track that's just so iconic, world-renowned. It's amazing. And every time I'm at the race, it's always so cool. Anytime your name gets announced, I hope you can hear that from the car, but people are cheering.
Not from the car. I mean, obviously driver intros I hear, but everyone says during, especially qualifying runs, that when I'm fast anyway, their response is great. I wish I could hear it, but the engines are pretty loud still.
Of course, yeah, I would imagine. I'll record it for you this year and send it to you.
Thanks.
You need to hear it. It's amazing. So you've already mentioned it. You are not only a driver, you're also an owner of a team. Are you the only IndyCar driver that is also an owner?
Right now,
Okay.
I'm the only active owner driver. There's been many before me, but yeah, right now I'm the only one.
Yeah. So I would imagine that comes with some interesting opportunities and some challenges.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. So how important is culture to you and your team?
Hugely important. You know, for me, I've had a couple chances at it, kind of. Before I started at Carpenter Racing, which we couldn't think of a better name if you're curious. My family owned a team called Vision Racing that I drove for from 2005 through into 2009, and that team ultimately failed. But I was a part of that team, not as an owner in on paper, but I was fully invested in it. And there from the beginning to the last day when we walked. I think our president at the time and I were kind of in a fight who was going to walk out of the building the last time because it was a sad day. But I went through that experience and then got a chance to try it again in 2012, and learned a lot of lessons that first time around. But with that culture and the way we treat our employees and teammates has always been probably my number one priority, and the thing that I probably spend the most time on as a team owner. Like, yeah, you have to have all the sponsorship and the finances to be able to run the operation, but the success ultimately comes from our people. And we're in a competitive environment where it's a relatively small pool of people that we're trying to attract, whether it's engineers, mechanics, truck drivers, you name it. And our culture goes a long ways into having retention and continuity. So to me, it's one of the most important things that we have to focus on daily.
Yeah. So on race day, if it comes down to like tension between driver ed and owner ed, who wins?
The beauty of May, and my team does a fantastic job of it. Like, they really allow me just to be a driver. They insulate me a ton. Colleen, that kind of runs our office, she puts a sign on the wall that says Ed is not the boss right now.
That's
which
great.
It's kind of a joke, but they actually take it very seriously. And there's times where I'm like, I'll find out something Monday after the race, and I'm like, I wish you would have told me about that. And they're like, yeah, well, we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
But I really do just get here and get to fully be a driver again, which is still what I love to do the most.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a definition of culture?
We don't have it defined. I think for me, it's I wanted a family atmosphere within our team. Like I mentioned a second ago, it's really hard to retain people. When we started the team in 2012, we had 17 full-time people that first year, and we still have 11 of those 17. And even though I haven't defined it, which I'll probably do in June, it is something that's important to us. But I think, to me, togetherness, obviously competition is at a forefront, and loyalty are kind of the three things that mean the most to me.
Yeah, those are so good. Well, I'll give you a definition of culture. Feel free to rip it off. If you like it, like it, you can keep it. I actually would like to think, Ed, there's a lot of similarities between you and I. Our team will sometimes talk about how, if we'll use the analogy that, like, I'm the driver, like figuratively speaking, and that they're kind of the pit crew, and hey, get in the car and drive and trust us. And so at times there's even that. I love watching races because I can just kind of see some parallels around some of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an underestimated thing when, I think for the casual fan, when they watch our sport, the driver is at the focal point of everything we do. But there's so many layers to what it takes, not only to get a car prepared to get to the track, but then once it's at the track, all the different layers of things that need to happen for you to have a successful day. And you are putting a ton of trust in everyone around you. With us here, this is the fastest place we race. We'll be over 240 miles an hour in qualifying, and you don't physically think about it all that often, but the amount of trust you're putting in the hands and mechanics that assemble that car, they all literally have my life in their hands
Yeah.
every single time they're working on the car.
Yeah. And it's not a one-man show.
No,
It takes a
definitely not.
whole team of people.
It's very, very orchestrated, and a lot of coordination within all the people that have a part in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the definitions of culture that we use is culture is the behavior of its leaders. So it's not just what we say we value, it's what we actually demonstrate.
Yeah.
It's not just what we have up on the wall, it's how we interact down the hall. And one of the ways in which we try to measure our culture just among our team is we talk a lot about humble, hungry, healthy. And if I were to kind of like, just in the rest of our conversation together, kind of click on that healthy aspect, and there's different aspects of health. But there's a term that we use that I think that you could actually really appreciate. We call it RPMs. I'm sure that you're very familiar with that term.
Yes, maybe a different version.
In a different way, yeah. But we're talking about like the RPMs of us, like individually, like when we pay attention to and are intentional with our personal RPMs, and then as a team, that's going to facilitate like a healthy culture. So what I'd love to do is just maybe walk through the RPMs with you.
Yeah.
Just get like, I'd love to just know what you've learned, what you're learning as a driver and an owner, somebody that's competing at a very high level in what you do.
Yeah, sounds good.
So like if we take like the first one, like relational, what are just, you've already touched on this a little bit, but some of the, maybe the relational things that you do to just maintain healthy relationships with everybody on your team. I'm sure that, some people are a little bit closer to you than others, but how do you view that?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you were talking about a second ago, I think being present with them, not only for what they need to do their job, but also just what's going on in their world and life. When we have close to 50 full-time employees now, and as we grow, it gets harder and harder to stay in tune with everybody. But that's a big part of the reason why I'm physically at the office every day, just to be there, to be present, to know what's going on, not only with, the task of the day, but, we have employees that are dealing with cancer or struggling with a marriage, all the normal issues that we all encounter, and just being a part of that and knowing that their employer cares and that their driver cares, to me brings out the best of them for doing a job for our business and our team.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. What about, Heather and the kids and just the people around you, family and friends? What are some things that you just, like you already mentioned, we're all going to have struggles, through relationships. But what are some things that you do just to maintain closeness and health in those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's one of the harder things at times with the schedule that we have. 6 months out of the year, I'm gone a lot. And it's gotten even harder as our kids have gotten older. McKenna's 16, Ryder will be 15 June 1st, and Cruz is 11. And so they have their own lives and social calendar and athletics calendar. So more and more, Heather and I are dividing and conquering in different cities, and then I'm traveling in my season. So we try to stay physically together as much as we can, which isn't always possible. Cruz, my youngest, he came to Barber, which was our last race with me when Heather was somewhere else with his brother. So just involving them in what I do every day, is a big part of it. And, for me, it's important because, my family enjoys what I do, but they also, there's things for them to learn, that they're probably not going to realize they're learning until, they get further into their life and develop perspective, which is hard for teenagers. But just being the same thing, just being present and being involved together, even though we're not together all the time.
Yeah, those different stages. I'm sure when the kids were younger, it probably was easier to take.
That's honestly the hardest thing for Heather, my wife. When the kids were younger, they did literally go everywhere. Since we started the team, I've only ever missed one on-track day, a test day, not a race event. I like to be there. It's, probably not necessary as much as it is, but it's my routine. It's how I operate. Yeah. But with that, we are moving around a lot. When the kids were younger, for sure, they went everywhere, and we're still probably too liberal about pulling them out of school when they don't need to be. But our kids have experienced some cool stuff. You know, I think Heather's taken them to about every children's museum across the United States. But you know, there's so much to it, but it definitely gets harder as their school gets more elevated, you know, and they have their own activities.
Yeah. Any of them showing an interest in racing?
The boys have.
Yeah.
Not enough to do it.
Yeah.
You know, that I took them both go-karting and introduced it to them. We actually made them a deal that we would do it, but they had to hit a certain threshold of raising the funds to get started. And it wouldn't have been that hard for them to do. Like, they needed to call some people that have supported me, maybe their grandparents, but I wanted them to like pick up the phone and ask for help.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of what we do. You know, we're in a sport where we rely on sponsorship dollars, and every day, essentially, I'm asking someone for money, and you get told no way more often than you get told yes. And they didn't go through that process. And to me, that was an indicator of they don't want to do this bad enough for us to invest in it together. Yeah. And it was probably a bit of a selfish decision for me, but I also knew that, you know, I know how to do this. Like, it's what I do. It's what I'm best at professionally. And if their commitment level wasn't like all the way, I didn't feel like it was probably going to be a healthy thing for, you know, our relationship, father to son or daughter. You know, whereas they can play hockey. My daughter's a pole vaulter. We can go do that, and I won't feel it as much as if they're not listening or not putting the effort in with my sport. So it's probably a little bit selfish, but you know, I think they're all happy with what they're doing. But my youngest does love it, like, for sure. I won't be surprised at all if he chooses a career or finds a career in motorsports, but time will tell.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of wisdom to me.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I've gone out in a two-seater a couple of times, and one of the things that was really surprising to me is just how physically strenuous it was. And, you know, I think we're only hitting a top speed of maybe 180.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm not driving, you know, and we did 2 laps, and I was like, man, I'm kind of exhausted. And I think that a lot of people underestimate just the physical strain that it puts on you in a car. What's that like? Like, going 3 wide at over 200 miles an hour on a hot 500, you know, race day. What's that like in the car?
It's hot.
Yeah.
Like, especially now, the era of cars we're in, we have a windscreen. Unlike early in my career when it was fully open cockpit, we don't get as much air as we used to. So physically, it's hot all the time. Like, even on a 65-degree day, you know, the heat from the engine and the radiators that are right next to me, that all radiates into the car. So it's physically very hot all the time. What does it feel like? I always tell people, which it's hilarious when you say it out loud, but it feels normal. You know, you asked at the very beginning of this when I started racing, and I was 8 years old, and you don't start out going 240 miles an hour. Like, it's like any other sport. You start at baseball, t-ball, and then go to coach pitch, and then players pitch. And as players get stronger, the ball comes faster. Like, it's the same thing in racing. Like, you really progress at a appropriate rate until you get here. Yeah. So with that, with training and practice, you know, by the time, if you make it here, like, you're prepared and it feels normal. Up until the point that you're out of control and crashing, and then it has a way of being really fast and also extremely slow at the same time. Like, I think senses are on high alert. But physically, you know, it's hot. Our cars don't have power steering, so you know, this track, the speedway, is probably one of the easier physically places to drive. Like, the straightaways are 5/8 of a mile long, so unlike you in the two-seater where you're not relaxed at all, you're tense, you're putting your life in whoever's driving that two-seater, you know, you're relying on them to keep you safe. You know, when I'm driving here, you know, I'm literally have time to think down the straightaways. Like, you know, I can think about my breathing, I can loosen my grip on the wheel, and just, you know, be cognizant of, you know, pacing yourself for what really is an endurance sport. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what do you do physically to train for races? That's how I start my day every day. I drop the kids off at school, the boys, and one of my nieces, and then I go from there to the gym. So that's been part of my routine for a long time, is kind of that first part of the day, that's driver ed. And so I finish at the gym. I train with a guy locally who pretty much just works with motorsport athletes, drivers, He works with our whole pit crew and some other teams as well. So it's a lot of, we're not lifting heavy. My back doesn't allow me to do that anymore anyway. But everything has some sort of endurance aspect to it. If we're lifting, it's for longer, a lot of resistance training, and just a lot of bracing, ab, neck strength, but all with a kind of endurance mindset to it.
Yeah. How does that translate for you off the track? Does it help you as be a better leader, be a better husband, better father? Is it something you think you'll do after racing?
I think about that at times. I think I'll have to.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll be as diligent of blocking out that first bit of every single day to focus on that, just because I'm not going to be a professional athlete at some point, so I'll have to be more flexible. But I think I'll have to, just for my own stress relief and just being healthy.
Yeah, longevity.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of dial in on the spiritual. One of the things that I've always just appreciated anytime I've ever just been around you is just how genuine you are. You're the real deal. Just very humble. I've had the privilege of coming over to your house a couple different occasions.
Yeah, you've been a couple times our night before the race.
Yeah. And I've always been so impressed with that. You've got friends and family come over, and then we just do a prayer together. And I really appreciate how intentional you and Heather are about all of that. So what does it mean to you to know and follow Jesus, and how has that shaped you as a man?
I think as a man, a father, a husband, it gives us a foundation, as what we should be striving for, and it gives us a roadmap to live our life.
Yeah.
And then as out here, I think as I wasn't as true to my faith early in my career, and as I got older and realized how much smarter my parents were than me and started making better decisions, I would say my prayer routine at the racetrack is probably when I'm most diligent with it, just because it's such a calming factor, and it's really the last thing I do each and every time I get in the car before I physically go drive, just because it puts me in the right place and gets me focused on the right things, and also acknowledging that there's only so much that I can do any given day.
Yeah. How have you towed the line between your faith in God and then being a business owner, being a leader?
Yeah, I just try to be who I am. Dave Rodriguez, he gave me some great advice kind of about how to deal with my faith, as an athlete with the platform.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, man, you're not a preacher, so don't try to act like one. Just be yourself.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
If you do it right, other people will notice. So that's kind of the philosophy I have with the team. I think we've got all sorts of types that work on our team. Whether it's believers, non-believers, Republicans, Democrats. I think at the end of the day, they all know that I care for them, and they definitely all know where I stand on all of those topics, but I don't think they're uncomfortable with that one way or the other. And we've got a great group. IndyCar has a great ministry that travels with us, and there's a group of our people that meet every single Monday with someone that comes in from the IndyCar ministry. Try to make things like that available, but back to just caring and treating people the right way. And I think they know that if they need something, they can come to me for whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your consistency both on and off the track. I appreciate the fact that you just are who you are, and that authenticity really shows that.
Sometimes that people think it's a little boring, but I'm old enough that I'm comfortable in my skin at this point.
Of course you need to be. You need to be. Well, man, we'll be cheering for you at the 500 this year. I think this is your year, man.
I go into every year thinking it's my year.
Yeah.
And then if it's not, we'll reload, try again.
Absolutely. Love it. Could I pray for you?
Absolutely.
All right. God, I just thank you so much for Ed, and just who he is, the influence and the impact that he has in our city, both on the track and off the track. I just pray that you would bless him and his wife Heather and their kids. And I just pray this year, as he is at the race, that you'd put not only a hedge of protection around him, but the other drivers, but that you would just watch over him, give him that platform in which he can continue to make much of you, be a consistent witness for you. And we're just grateful for the man that he is, and the inspiration that he is to our city. And so I just lift him up to you right now. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.